Why the hell is there an alligator in here?
He's a Loki.
Lovely Celestial Garden. I told you I'll be back. Listen, I know how long y'all have been holding on and waiting and awaiting for me to get to this. And so we gonna wrap it up. We are going into the last 2 episodes of Loki. We are diving into episode 5 and 6. So we gonna skip all the formalities for right now. We gonna just jump right into it. So episode 5, Jesus Christ. Episode 5. Oh, okay. So, let's get into episode 5, shall we? Dear episode 5, you did not have to send me on this wild goose chase like you did. So, it picks up right where episode 4 left off, right? So episode 4 leaves off with us seeing 4 Lokis? Yes. Classic Loki, which is the older Loki, Kid Loki, Croc Loki, Boss Loki, all surrounding the Loki that we know in this timeline, and telling him to come with them if they want to leave. So what we find out, right, excuse me, is from there is countless other Lokis, right? So here's how it goes down, right? So you know how when you get pruned, we thought you died. No, this is what actually happens. When you are pruned, you are not dead. You are removed from the timeline, right? But here's the thing. You are sent pretty much to the void. Because with that, as what's-her-face, Judge Renslayer, I'm calling her Renslayer, she don't deserve the judge title because of all the mess she does. But what she says is, when we prune a branch reality, it is impossible to destroy all of its matter, because matter is energy, and energy is never destroyed, it's just released back into the environment. Hence, science. Okay, so what happens, right? They send, whenever you're pruned, and whenever timeline's pruned, they get sent to a void at the end of time. And what happens is that, quote unquote, it's a place where everything collides, right? So all the instances of existence collide and they stop. So TVA is pretty much lazy. It's pretty much, the void is pretty much that closet where they shove all the stuff that they don't want to deal with and get rid of, but don't really want to get rid of, can't really get rid of. So like, you know how when you're doing a spring cleaning and you have some extra stuff and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to need this later. So rather than fully throwing it away or donating it, you just shove it in your closet and shut it. And once it's in there, it's forgotten. And similar idea, right? So it is purgatory. The void is pretty much purgatory and has all these what ifs. Follow on along with me, right? All these what ifs, right? And the void is pretty much ruled by Alioth. Alioth, I think is the proper way to pronounce it. Alioth is actually, here's the funny thing. So they depict him in Loki as spiraling purple cloud with a beast-like head that's like big, right? But the thing is, I hate this. Like, I don't know much about the Loki comics, but I happen to read, like, I'm not in depth, like, I've read it 50 million times, but I've read the comics, the Loki comics at least, in passing, and I've, like, gone through, and, like, I liked Elliot, how they did him. He was much more terrifying and more powerful in the comics. Because, here's the thing, so, for people who don't know, in the comics, right, Alioth is so strong, it's because he literally freed him. He was that person to free himself from the constraints of time, to the point where he built he had an empire, right? His empire was, I think it was 2 to 3 times larger than even Kong the Conqueror. Remember that name for later. So, it was him who pretty much caused an issue, because Alioth's presence prevented Kang, sorry, not Kong, Kang the Conqueror, prevented Kang from expanding his dominion, right? To the point where Kang even created a barrier to keep Alioth away from invading. It gets destroyed. I'm talking about in the comics currently. So in the comics, the barrier gets destroyed by Renslayer, following Kang's death. That causes Alioth to go to pretty much threaten all time and space, right? And so to the point where the Avengers had to literally revive Kang to stop this. That's how strong this man was, right? But now pretty much in the show, he's like a watchdog, and we figure this out because Alioth's position is pretty much as a watchdog to like he protects the entrance to a cosmic mansion, right? And so with that, it's just that all in and of itself is messy, right? So then the thing that we're all wondering now, because we see this, we really see this, are we gonna get to know what this mansion, because like we see a glimpse of it, a bit of it, because the mansion is pretty, and like we're like, what is that? And like apparently Sylvie had seen it before, but so with this, right, we don't know if we're gonna get a glimpse of it. They didn't play no games. They're like, listen, we're getting to the end, so let's keep pushing forward. So I'm gonna continue doing the same thing. So then, classic Loki does this massive distraction, right? Loki and Sylvie join together. They're able to enchant Alioth, and that crumbles the protective barrier that Alioth maintains, right? And this fully reveals this cosmic mansion. And literally, once the mansion is revealed, that's where it ends for chapter 5. So we're just gonna go straight into let's go straight into the finale, right? So with this finale, we're getting into this, right? Finally, they get into excuse me. So Loki and Sylvie finally get into this damn cosmic, oh, my nose itches, sorry. This damn cosmic huge mansion. It's beautiful. It looks like I don't want to say preserved, but more in the sense of like it's, you can tell it's been around for a while just because of the aging and how they do the set dressing and stuff like that, which is really nice. But you continue, and I have to say this note, I'm going to come back to it, but the way that they do the finale really is a great entrance into how Phase 4 has started and is going to change the game. So let's talk about it, right? We find out that the person in the building, right, is, this is the, let me back up a little bit. The cosmic mansion that we're seeing, right, that Alioth was protecting, is the citadel at the end of time. And finally we see, it's pretty much giving a little bit of a Wizard of Oz kind of homage. And two Loki variants finally see kind of like the man behind the curtain, or the one who is pretty much the man who's in control. And the man who's in control is pretty much Kang the Conqueror, who is Jonathan Majors, and he was actually officially cast to play Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which is my heart, but that's a whole nother story. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm just going to go through everything first before I go and explain actually, no, I'm going to explain the comic kind of version of Kang and then explain the differences, right? Okay. So let's go. How do I explain this? Okay. So in the comics, right, He Who Remains is the final director of the TVA. he lives in the Citadel at the end of time, and he is responsible of the beings known. It's different. Here's how it's different, right? Because he's responsible for the beings known as the Time Twisters. They are created in order to teach and inform the inhabitants of a future universe. But what they do, which is really crazy and kind of starts its own chaotic like timeline for the comics, is that the Time Twisters actually began going back in time and destroying the current universe, saying that purity, blah blah blah, and all this stuff, right? So then here's the thing: it was Thor and Jane Foster. They inform He Who Remains of his mistake, and then what he does is pretty much kind of does this he aborts the Time Twisters in order to create a better version of them, known as the Time Keepers, right? And it makes two divergent realities. One where the Time Keepers exist, and one that the Time Twisters exist. And whichever one exists, the other version of it is dead. So that's how that works, kind of like in the actual comics. So with this one, it's pretty different because first off, he's not named as Kong. Excuse me, sorry, I'm trying to function at, like, it's late, and I'm still trying to I'm gonna push through this for you guys, though. So, first of all, he's not named as Kong the Conqueror. Kong is never said. I don't think it's ever said in this episode. It's not said in this episode. He does refer to himself, though, saying that he was a conqueror at one point. So, what happens in this version of him, though, it's pretty much He Who Remains is the version of Kang that pretty much stopped the multiverse war. And because he says, without me, without the TVA, everything burns. And the thing is, like, this version of, both versions, of course, knew what was going on, pretty much, because they kind of, but, like, with this version of Kang, he pretty much sees all the way up to a certain point in the timeline. And once he hits that point, he doesn't know how the rest of it is going to play out. So he's coming to that point when Sylvie and Loki kind of enter the Citadel at the end of time. And he's like, he doesn't know how this is going to play out now, right? So, in this version, right, with the repurposing, there isn't the Timekeepers in this version, because the Timekeepers are pretty much fake. They're pretty much TVA agents and everything. And the Timekeepers are fake. They never existed. They were fictional beings that were made up by He Who Remains, right? And, yeah, like I was saying, so this version, He Who Remains, is pretty much a conqueror variant that harnessed and used the power of Alioth to bring an end to the multiversal war. And that war nearly destroyed all of reality. So here's the reason why. So he goes through his whole backstory of discovering the multiverse in the 31st century and everything, and how he was like, pretty much how boredom and like too much knowledge and everyone is pretty much the same, and he was looking for something to change, right? And so with that, he goes back into time and blah blah blah, and how his other variant versions of himself are not as quote unquote kind or whatever, or pure of heart. So with that, they only saw like the past and other, well, I don't want to say the past because it's not necessarily the past, seeing other timelines as worlds to conquer. So hence, I think if I'm correct, that's how Kang the Conqueror came into being, right? So with this, right, it sets up Kang, right, as talks about like the multiversal history. It like ties back to episode 1 with the multiversal history of the MCU, but it also shows Kang to be a present and formidable figure. But it also shows the start of Phase 4, because at the end of beginning of this finale, the intro was all of these iconic iconic phrases and phrases, sentences, words from different characters to kind of summarize the history of the MCU, right? But then it really ties into how this ends, right? Because it shows that intro alone shows that that Kang really does have a clear vantage point of the universe he controls. Like, he is outside of the sacred timeline that he has created, right? But with that, this ending, right, that Kang doesn't know how it's going to end, as he says, because you're coming to this point, right? He doesn't know how it ends. He's thinking that one of them, both of them are going to take over and everything, but he doesn't know how it's going to end, right? But the thing is, he kind of gives the idea of someone has to take over. Because he who remains is the way of is kind of pretty much stopping all of the other variants from breaking loose and sending the multiverse back into chaos again. And it means kind of like arguing like devil's advocate of like, even though what he did wasn't the best, he has good intentions and he's doing it for the best of everyone and humanity. And it's one of these kind of interesting moments of like, how do we deal with this, right? And here's the thing. We get into this point where Sylvie and Loki now kind of clash heads, right? And it's just, ugh. We see Loki kind of go through his arc, right? Because, his arc is pretty much going from selfish narcissist to, like, semi-selfless warrior. And, like, diving into more of his mind and, like, how he became the way he is and why he kind of acts the way he is. Meanwhile, we see Sylvie pretty much on the other side of things of, like... And I feel like it talks a bit about love in a way that I will explain later. And, like, loving yourself... Like, self-love, but also, like, how... Sylvie's absence of love, because she had to, like, run away from home and, like, kind of... Pretty much the only way she was in survival mode and had to stay in survival instincts. She learned how to hold on to her revenge. That desire for revenge was the only thing that kind of kept her alive, and it kept feeding her, and she can't let it go, right? And with that, right? So, sorry, because the ending also threw me off with this. She kisses Loki. Sylvie kisses Loki. Uses He Who Remains pad to send Loki off into a portal. Right? Yeah, through a time portal. With that, now that Loki is no longer there, Sylvie plunges her sword into He Who Remains chest. Kills him, but it's pretty much I'll see you soon. So, and then with that, we see how Loki kind of breaks down. And not Loki. Sylvie collapses, breaks down. Because her desire kind of makes her throw away her relationship with Loki and throws away everything else. But it creates the multiverse, as we see, because we see all these new branches like breaking off of the timeline, and none of them are stable, right? So then, in the actual end, Loki is back at the TVA. He thinks that if he can talk to Mobius and tell Mobius what's happened, then it'll help. Like, they can make a plan together to kind of fix this. But Mobius doesn't recognize him, which really hits his heart really, really hard, right? But now, with this, we're in a new version. A new version of the TVA. Because when Loki's looking around, he realizes that where the TVA's timekeeper statues used to be, there's now a Kong the Conqueror statue. So what we can deduce, we don't know for sure, but what we can deduce is that when Sylvie sent Loki through a time portal, it wasn't to his original timeline, it was actually to one of the new branch realities. And in this now, Kong controls the TVA with a more iron fist. But the way that it ended, we have gotten hinted that season 2 is coming. We're getting season 2 of Loki, which is exciting. But also, I feel like it serves really well. Like, that ending shows us is a very great lead into the rest of Phase 4, because we're having new realities that are opening up. So I think it shows, it opens up the pathways for, like, What If, which I feel like is coming up soon. Yeah. Shows up What If. It opens the pathway for Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness, of course. I think it also ties into WandaVision and how we see Wanda kind of trying to control her own magic and everything, but there's still things that are like left unopened and unsaid. Opened for a lot of things, and so it was really great going through this structure of getting to see more of Loki and getting to dive more into his psyche a bit with this series. The only thing is I really wish they didn't make Loki pretty much into, like, he started so strong. I feel like they kind of, in a way, turned him into a lapdog for Sylvie. And I know that might be a bit controversial, but it feels like he got turned into a lapdog in regards for love. And I feel like that wasn't fair to his character. Because as soon as, like, as she was introduced in episode 2, as soon as Sylvie was introduced, because I don't think she's Lady Loki. She's a mixture of, like, 2 different characters, and I don't feel like she gives strong, like, she's Lady Loki, but also I feel like she's her own independent character in a way, with the way that they characterized her and they built up her characterization. But with that, I feel like she's her own separate person. And I feel like the way they made it is that because Loki really hasn't felt love, and I don't want to say, like, or like a love interest, that's what it is. They introduced Loki having a love interest with Sylvie, and I know people are going to be like, oh, you just want to push the gay agenda, and yes, of course I do, but I feel like there was more chemistry, honestly, between him and Mobius. And I feel like that would have been really interesting, especially because I feel like they could have talked more about, like, him being gender fluid. And, like, yes, we saw it briefly in the in his folder, his case profile, and they talked about it a little bit when I think it was him and Sylvie discussing in one of the episodes, but they could have done so much more. Marvel could have done so much more with that, and making him fall, like, yes, he's the god of mischief, but he does have heart, and to say that he's only capable of falling in love with himself because he has such a twisted history and past, I feel like that was a little low for Marvel. Marvel, that was low for you. I feel like the relationship that was, like, naturally building in a weird way between Mobius and Loki would have been so much better. So much better. It made so much more sense. And I'm not even saying that from, like, a gay standpoint. Just, like, the structure of their relationship made a lot more sense than suddenly introducing Sylvie and you kind of, like, changed Loki's. Anyway, that. And there was so much more, but I know if I keep talking, I'm going to be mad. And also, I feel like they left it as open as they did because season 2 may answer, and also I feel like other Marvel pieces may answer a lot more questions. So I'm gonna leave it where it is. Thank y'all for following me on this journey of Loki. Hopefully things die down, hopefully, and we can get Shuri back on the show. But once again, send Shuri so much love and so much grace and also so much luck as they start college. And I hope y'all have a great rest of your week. Lots of peace, love, and happiness from your favorite celestial parent, from your favorite Black Panther, from the one and only T'Challa. Long live the king, and adios, guys!